Hello, it's May 7th. I'm Tony Samario, 2017, coming to you my father, BroSal.org YouTube channel, and Think or Swim. I want to talk about Zionism. And the interesting thing I'm finding with these YouTube content providers, Zionism, of course, is to blame for everything. Naturally, Rothschilds, Jewish, Zionism, Middle East, financial system funded the Bolshevik Revolution. It's also clear. Hey, let's not forget the protocols of the elders of Zion, which, is as clear a blueprint as Albert Pikes' 3 World Wars. But whoops, how come Albert Pike, with his strategy, points out that we're going to, first of all, use Second World War to establish Zionism, just like they would use the First World War to establish fascism, and then use the Second World War to establish Zionism, hold Christianity in check, build up its antithesis in communism/atheism, so-called, and meanwhile, reestablish the state of Israel out of this Second World War, in defeat of Nazism. Interesting how Pikes' version all sets up so, coincidentally well, if it just happens to be a big fabrication and a joke and a hoax, just happens to mimic history, and now, right up into the present day. But it does point to the fact that what I'm always trying to show people, Zionism's an obvious patsy, isn't it? Like NASA going to the moon, guys, nuclear weapons, right? Freedom and democracy. Aren't we spreading freedom all over the world? Isn't America great and free? Why? Because we're spreading democracy and freedom all over the world. Don't people hate us for our freedoms? Is anything America ever says true? So how come everybody knows Zionism's behind everything? How come it's so friggin' obvious? I just did a thing a few minutes ago about the Illuminati, right? If the Illuminati is so hidden, so obviously hidden, that all we really get to see in our reality is a bunch of belligerent, movie stars and rock stars. We get to see a bunch of obvious propaganda and mouthpieces, and right. We know from history that you can't even be president of the United States. You can't be Martin Luther King Jr. What do you get to do against the people that rule the world that they don't take care of you in any way they need to? Oh, yeah, but you can tell all about the Illuminati. You can take oaths of blood, but then come right out and talk to, mainstream media. You can get on 2020. You can do articles in the Washington Times, New York Times, straight from the Illuminati. Yeah, right out of a Illuminati ritual. Go out and tell the world. Sure you do. I encourage people to listen to Anthony Sutton's work on the 322, the Club of 322, and the Skull and Bones of Yale, and the sort of tool of secret control that is, started in 1833, remained a tool of secret control for 150 years. It wasn't until the modern day that anyone even started talking about this private club at Yale having anything to do with nefarious or in other words, in the journalistic idea of widespread nefarious activity, looking at them. That didn't go on until the modern day. And I say it's all part of externalization of the hierarchy. But Anthony Sutton didn't go very far, and they did seize all his stuff, and he died shortly after they seized all his research. So, like Bill Cooper, he's not a guy that made much of a splash when you consider all this modern crapola of YouTube providers with all their, mini ice age, satanic, everything's satanic, this and that, everything's transhumanism, Illuminati, as if they got the story. And similar to that, it's Zionism. It's so funny how the mainstream media, who everybody seems to know is full of absolute, propaganda. They never mention Zionism. Of course, we point at that and say that's part of their obvious propaganda. Zionism's good. They defend the state of Israel. They speak of the state of Israel. They don't speak of Zionism. They speak of our great friend, the state of Israel. And within that mainstream media, you have Muslim terrorism spoken of as a real thing. All these false flags like Orlando massacre is spoken of as a real thing. No one's safe in the mainstream media, right? Because of Islamic terrorism, refugees, etc. North Korea and Iran are trying to bomb us in mainstream media. Russian aggression's is threatening to start World War III in mainstream media that speaks of the Zionist rulers as our great friend, the state of Israel. And what I find so interesting is it's only in mainstream media if you find any of the stories that are meaningful. They're blamed on the wrong thing, of course, but, Muslim terrorism, shoot, that's the new Cold War. That's the new Nazi Germany. That's the new reason to stay at war perpetually. So Muslim terrorism, boy, that's as real as apple pie. They're both, creations of the USA. So Islamic State, ISIS, all the, obviously everyone seems to know that. In the alternative media, the people who are pointing at Zionists being in control of everything. But in the mainstream media, the people who are pointing to our great friend, the state of Israel, they're telling you that, all the stories that actually matter. Muslim terrorism, no one's safe, refugees, we got problems coming. North Korea, Iran, Russian aggression, World War III. This is all true, guys. This is what's really coming. It's just not coming for any of the reasons they're talking about. But, of course, no one's paying attention because you think you're on to truth. In the truth movement, all these YouTube channels, these content providers who are happy to point at Zionism as the bad guy, while they tell you about transhumanism, the Illuminati, Satanism, Luciferianism, alien deception, the Ice Age, CERN is opening portholes, right? Nuclear war with Russia. All these misleading things that have nothing to do with anything in the way the alt media is talking about. The Zionists are obviously the dupe, the patsy. If you look at the big picture, Albert Pikes' version has him as the patsy. The religious version has him as the victim, doesn't it? In the Jewish version, if you bother to read it, they don't just take over the world. They get destroyed down to a remnant, and God saves the remnant. And it's the remnant that returns under God's very hand, and that's what they want to claim has happened there. But if you go to BroSal on YouTube and check out our Bible study, I feel pretty confident that we've got a story that's unmatched, unequaled by any other that's trying to interpret Scripture. They're all traditional and full of misdirection and mythology. Whereas if you just look at it clearly, it's simple to see that whatever supernatural happening may be coming in which the remnant of the God's people are returned to the Holy Land, that hasn't happened yet. And so everybody seems to know these Zionists are behind everything, except that in all of the story, the Zionists are destroyed and only a remnant is left. And so they're obviously the patsies onto which World War III can be blamed. And in the Pike prediction, supposed, of World War III, that's exactly what happens. They both destroy each other, the Zionism and the state of Israel. So I say that nearly everything I see with regard now to YouTube content providers is all deception and misdirection, whether on purpose or not. Whether some of these people are just honestly duped or not, it's obvious that none of it leads to the true story. The true stories about what's coming is Muslim terrorism is sponsored by the USA. Refugees is created by the USA and that whole system that's been in charge, that started Russia, that's in charge of Russia, that's in charge of China, as we said in our talk about North Korea, and that's setting up World War III and what's going to come first, which, of course, will be peace in the War, Peace, War plan. So pay attention, guys. It's time to think or swim.